Good morning, and welcome to the Stylo News Intelligence Update. It's the 1st of June 2026. I'll be your guide through today's Executive Intelligence Briefing, where we're focusing our attention squarely on the South Asian theater. We're going to cut right through the noise today. Our goal is to deliver a calm, measured, and completely factual analysis of the events that have been shaping this really critical region over the last 2 weeks.
Now, before we jump in, I want to mention that this briefing is made possible by ProWave AI. They're the developers behind Stylo Intel Ops, which is our AI-powered open-source intelligence program, and Stylo News, the commercial platform you can find on the web and mobile apps. Today's explainer serves as your direct lead-in to our comprehensive long-form podcast analysis titled South Asia on Edge: Borders, Alliances, and Rising Tensions.
So, here's our agenda for the briefing. We'll proceed methodically through a regional overview, map out the conflict zones, assess the impacts and positions of key decision-makers, evaluate the intelligence and public sentiment, and finally it will wrap up with a predictive outlook.
Section 1. Regional Overview. Assessing Elevated Instability.
All right, let's get right into our baseline assessment. The bottom line up front, based on our continuous intelligence gathering, is that the threat of an immediate, full-scale, four-state conventional war is thankfully low. We just aren't seeing those massive core-level troop mobilizations, the Air Force dispersals, or the naval deployments that always precede a general war. But, and this is absolutely crucial, the risk of limited clashes, coercive signaling, and sub-threshold crises, that remains uniquely moderate to high. We're looking at a period of overlapping elevated instability here rather than the eve of total conflict. And this matters to us because even limited clashes in a nuclear-armed region can seriously disrupt global diplomatic focus and regional trade.
Moving right along to Section 2, Mapping the Conflict, Key Flashpoints, and Border Frictions. Let's look at the geography driving this assessment.
To put things in perspective, the broader South Asian theater is primarily anchored by the activities radiating from a few key geopolitical nodes. We're looking at Kabul in Afghanistan, Islamabad in Pakistan, New Delhi in India, and Dhaka in Bangladesh. The friction we're actively monitoring is largely playing out in the spaces between these capitals. It's like a giant puzzle where every piece inevitably affects the others.
Now, this really illustrates the tactical realities on the ground. We can easily identify specific sustained cross-border skirmishes. Over along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, we're tracking persistent border tensions and militant incidents. And to the east, along the India-Pakistan line of control, we see simmering crisis conditions. We're talking reports of localized firing. So again, while major force mobilization is entirely absent right now, the kinetic activity at these borders is absolutely creating a highly escalation-prone environment.
Next up is Section 3, Impacts and Decision-Makers, Policy Shifts and Strategic Realignments. We have to understand how these frictions are altering domestic and international policies.
You really have to notice how these local actions cascade right on to the international stage. Locally, India has amended its citizenship rules. They're now requiring applicants from Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh to actually disclose and surrender their passports, which significantly increases administrative scrutiny. Nationally, India is enforcing a strict zero-tolerance policy on border structures to prevent infiltration. At the same time, Pakistan is heavily engaged in balancing some really severe internal insurgencies in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, all while dealing with ongoing economic stress. Internationally, we're observing a major shift. Bangladesh is actively diversifying its defense and diplomatic ties, notably shifting some civil servant training away from India and over to Pakistan. And meanwhile, multilateral bodies are strongly urging counterterrorism cooperation to try and stabilize the whole region.
So, what does this all mean? The crucial point is understanding the stated perspectives of the decision-makers themselves. India's Home Ministry is completely focused on a zero-tolerance approach to infiltration and securing its demographic borders. Pakistan's Defense Ministry, on the other hand, is issuing stern warnings against any foreign military misadventure while prioritizing the repatriation of Afghan refugees. Then we have Bangladesh's government, which is recalibrating entirely. They're advancing talks for JF-17 fighter jets and pivoting civil relations toward Islamabad to lessen their reliance on New Delhi. And China? Well, while they aren't directly seeking conflict, they are intensely focused on protecting their massive China-Pakistan economic corridor investments from insurgent threats in Balochistan.
That brings us to Section 4, Intelligence and Sentiment, Information Domain and Public Discourse.
Now, our open-source intelligence highlights a recurring and, frankly, sobering theme among regional experts and defense analysts. The prevailing narrative is that new war technologies, multi-domain operations, and incredibly short warning times are actively eroding crisis stability.
In a theater completely defined by nuclear proximity, these experts warn that there's dangerously little room for controlled conventional escalation. I mean, with missile flight times between these capitals measured in mere minutes, the margin for error is practically non-existent. And you know, this erosion of stability is perfectly mirrored in the public digital domain. When we look at our sentiment analysis of regional social media traffic, it reveals a highly polarized environment. A massive 65% of the discourse registers as overtly hostile or defensive, deeply rooted in historical grievances and accusations of cross-border terrorism. Another 25% leans conspiratorial or highly anxious, reflecting very real fears of proxy warfare and shifting alliances. Only a tiny fraction, just 10%, maintains a neutral or strictly analytical tone. So the public discourse is extremely volatile, and you can be sure decision-makers are feeling this domestic pressure.
Finally, Section 5, Predictive Security Outlook, Forward Trajectory and Indicators. Let's look at what the intelligence suggests is coming next.
All of these factors synthesize into our most probable forecast. Our estimate concludes that a deliberate plunge into full-scale war is highly unlikely. Instead, here is the escalation pathway we need to monitor. First, a localized border firing or a significant militant incident acts as the trigger. Next, highly polarized domestic political pressures immediately compress the decision-making time for national leaders. Third, this leads directly to coercive military signaling and severe rhetorical escalation. And finally, the situation culminates in a limited bilateral military crisis, most likely between India and Pakistan or Afghanistan and Pakistan. Basically, it's a chain reaction of localized events that end up spiraling upward.
Well, that concludes today's Stylo News Intelligence Update. I highly encourage you to go listen to our full podcast, South Asia on Edge, Borders, Alliances, and Rising Tensions. It's available right now on your favorite channel, or you can just follow the link in this post. Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer. I also invite you to subscribe at stylonews.com for AI-powered news on demand. As we watch these border tensions continue to simmer, it leaves us with one incredibly vital question to ponder. Are highly compressed decision times the new, permanent normal for managing global flashpoints? Something to think about. Until next time, stay informed.